The NFL is changing, which is expected as the years go by and the league evolves. However, some are not fans of the changes coming down the pipeline. Changes that include more games out of the country and potentially, maybe, even more games in general. So I've got to talk about all that, a couple young coaches climbing quickly up the ladder, old players finding new teams here soon, and more right after. All right, first up, the NFL recently announced this week that they'll be playing their first ever game in Melbourne, Australia in 2026, and that will be the first of what is going to be a multi-year commitment. We already know that the Rams will be the designated home team for that game as it was announced this week, but we don't know their opponent yet. We do know 7 of their 9 home opponents already, though, and you can see those up on the screen here. So it could be one of these teams. We just probably won't know for quite a while, maybe not until the 2026 schedule gets released in over a year from now, because yes, it's for the 2026 season, okay? Not 2025, but there is more coming for the season. I'll get there in a second. Just thought it was worth mentioning because it's yet another effort from the league to continue growing and expanding the game of football outside of the U.S., for 2025, though, this season, Dublin, Ireland will be hosting a game featuring the Pittsburgh Steelers and somebody. I might have to go back to the motherland for this one. This is taking place at Croke Park, and ironically, the Steelers did play a preseason game there back in 1997. The NFL had a few games in London last year, as well as Brazil and Germany, and basically, they are not slowing down with games that involve long flights, jet lag, and in theory, games that simply put more strain on athletes' bodies and require them to have more rest afterwards. For example, on how crazy the Australia game is going to be, Melbourne is 17 hours ahead of Kansas City, Missouri, where I live. 17 hours. That is insane. A lot of people are not fans of this, the expansion to more international games, because they're saying, hey, my team has a home game. I would really prefer to watch them at their home stadium. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you like the expansion into more international markets or nah? And then with the 2024 season over after the Super Bowl, this is about the time we start hearing of potential changes and ideas that could be coming soon to the NFL. One of those talking points that's been pretty popular over the last couple of years is the idea to add another game to the regular season and make it an 18-game schedule. Roger Goodell broached the topic during his presser this week, throwing out the idea that they could even reduce the preseason schedule to 2 games in order to make room for the extra regular season game. He pointed to some of the changes the league has made to equipment and the offseason/preseason schedules, saying they've helped reduce the amount of concussions and other injuries, which makes an 18th game more possible. So that was on Monday, but on Wednesday, the NFLPA held their annual news conference, and Executive Director Lloyd Howell vehemently disagreed with Goodell's proposal. As far as the claim that injuries are down, Howell actually said, quote, frankly, we're not sure how he's reaching that conclusion based on the data we've been given access to. So, who's lying and why? Or at least, what data are these guys looking at, the NFLPA compared to the NFL, and why is it so contradictory? Lloyd then put it plainly, saying, no one wants to play an 18th game. He mentioned the fact that 17 games is already lengthy enough to where some players are still dealing with injuries going into the next season. Austin Eckler is a vice president of the NFLPA, and he said the thought of an 18-game schedule makes him cringe, calling it outrageous and something he is heavily against. Honestly, everything at this point has been pretty informal in terms of talks of adding an extra game. The current collective bargaining agreement between the NFL and NFLPA doesn't expire until after the 2030 season, and once it's up, the 18th game would have to then be voted on and agreed to by both the owners and the players. I think we know where the owners stand on this. There's much more money to be made with an extra game, so of course most of them are going to vote yes, please fill up our pocketbooks on that one. But unless the NFL compromises a bit, it doesn't sound like NFL players have any interest in approving it. Lloyd Howell mentioned the number of bye weeks, roster sizes, practice squad sizes, among other things that would likely need to be addressed before the NFLPA votes in favor of it. Surely you need at least another bye week. So 2 bye weeks, 1 less preseason game, that makes it a little bit more realistic in theory. We also can't forget that 1 extra game means more money for NFL players, or at least that would need to be negotiated if the NFL has any hope or prayer that players would help pass or add an 18th game. At the end of the day, it's the players who are going out there and putting their bodies on the line, and if they're telling you they don't want to play an 18th game, then I think we should probably listen. After all, they just added that 17th game back in 2021, and now just a few years later, we're already talking about adding another game. Yes, NFL is king. People keep watching, but this last week of the NFL season had so many games that didn't matter. A lot of teams that were already out of the playoffs didn't change anything. A lot of the teams that were in the playoffs just flipped a minor seeding and rested their starters anyway. So a lot of those games were already not competitive. So that's a factor. A big one also is player safety, but what about player records? It's much more minor than player safety, but every record from the 16-game schedule is going to get absolutely destroyed at some point. I mean, we've already seen a handful get broken just by adding the 17th game as it is. Next up, Liam Cohen just added a couple of young whippersnappers to his staff in Jacksonville. And you know, if I'm saying that, these guys are young. He hired former Bears offensive coordinator Shane Waldron to be the passing game coordinator and former Vikings assistant QB coach Grant Udinski to be their new OC. And get this, Udinski is only 29 years old. That's wild to think about because there's a handful of dudes on that roster that are older than he is. He started his coaching career as an assistant with the Panthers in 2020, then joined the Viking staff also as an assistant in 2022 before becoming the assistant QB's coach in 2023. I'm honestly not sure what level of involvement he had with the team just because Kevin O'Connell calls the plays and is known as the quarterback whisperer. Then Josh McCown was the actual QB's coach, whereas Udinski was just an assistant. Either way, he was in the room with these guys, so you're going to bring that in there with you to the next team. Plus, Sam Darnold having a career year and going 14-3 looks pretty good on his resume, and he now finds himself in
Duval
with Liam Cohen. Who says Duval like that? That's insane. Anyway, most of you may know this piece of news by now, but earlier this week, the Rams informed Cooper Kupp that they would be seeking a trade for him immediately. I mean, as soon as you're legally allowed to, a trade is presumably going to happen. Nothing happened behind the scenes, though, to anyone's knowledge from like a drama or conflict standpoint, though I'm sure it has to do with money. Maybe the Rams were like, hey, can you restructure your contract so we don't owe you as much money as I'm about to talk about here in a second? And if Kupp said, nah, fam, I'm good, I need my money, they're like, all right, we're going to trade you. Maybe that's how it went down. Will we ever really know? Not sure. But Cooper stated he doesn't want to be traded. But with the emergence of Puka Nacua, I think they see this as an opportunity to clear up some cap space. Kupp carries a near $30 million cap hit next season, and combine that with the fact that he'll be 32 next year, and he's missed 18 games due to injury over the last 3 seasons. I would say this does make a ton of sense from the Rams' perspective. And even though he's still probably a top 10, 15-ish wide receiver when healthy and out there on the field, all those things I just mentioned are what will most likely keep the Rams from getting a significant return for him. DeAndre Hopkins is a similar age, and the Chiefs traded a conditional 5th for him, so I'm not sure you could get much more for Kupp. I mean, maybe a 3rd. I would be shocked if it was anything higher than that. And while Kupp clearly isn't the player he was in 2021, he's still a good receiver, and there are plenty of teams that could use his services. One caveat worth mentioning, though, is that Cooper Kupp himself said the team is working with him and his family to help him find a good fit for him where he can continue competing for Super Bowls. So that narrows it down significantly. Contenders that also have some cap space to work with. How about the Washington Commanders, maybe? I mean, they're fresh off of an NFC Championship appearance behind a rookie quarterback who should keep them in playoff contention every year. They don't have a solid number 2 to complement Terry McLaurin right now. Zach Ertz, for example, their tight end, was 2nd on the team in receiving, but he's 34, plus he was on only a 1-year deal, and we don't even know if he'll still be on the team. I think Kupp could be a nice fit there as a solid, reliable veteran, aside from Scary Terry for Jaden Daniels. Plus, they have the 3rd most cap space heading into next season with over $80 million. So they could definitely absorb his contract if they wanted to go that route. Another team that's intriguing is the LA Chargers. They, just like Washington, have a good amount of cap space as they're sitting on $64 million heading into 2025. They have Quentin Johnston, who they drafted in the 1st round last year, then Ladd McConkey, who they took early on in the 2nd round last year, and he quickly emerged as Herbert's number 1 wideout, leading the team in targets, catches, and yards. Quentin Johnston had a disappointing rookie season, but had a pretty solid bounce-back year, going over 700 yards and catching 8 touchdowns. Beyond those two, it's looking pretty grim in the wide receiver room. Joshua Palmer was their number 3 receiver, but he's now a free agent. So who knows if he will be back. Plus, McConkey and Johnston are on their rookie deals. So yeah, they still could pay Kupp top receiver money and not even be investing that much into their wide receiver room as a whole. I will say it would be a bit odd of a move if they did this, because just last season, they traded away the aging Keenan Allen to the Bears for cap relief, so it would be a little funny to me to see them trade for an aging receiver less than 1 year later. But hey, crazier things have happened. Let me know what team you think could benefit most from Cooper Kupp's services. It's got to be a team with a decent amount of cap space, and maybe a team with a quarterback on a rookie deal. I don't know. Let me know who you think in the comments down below. Now, Kupp will be far from the only player on a new team next season. We know that it happens every year, but here's one to talk about. Adam Schefter reported this week that the Falcons are expected to cut Kirk Cousins when the new league year begins on March 12th. It's not really all that surprising. Once they benched him towards the end of the year, despite still being in the hunt for the playoffs, I think we all had a sense of where this was going. You can't even blame them for the benching, though. Kirk led the league in turnovers despite missing the last 3 games, and he was the main reason they fumbled away their chance at winning the NFC South after starting the year 6-3. Worth noting, Kirk recently shared on Good Morning Football this week that he sustained a shoulder and elbow injury to his throwing arm in the Saints game and could, quote, never get it to where I wanted it after that. So who really knows? Raheem Morris said Kirk's fall off wasn't injury related, so something isn't adding up. He was asked for further comment talking about Kirk Cousins recently during Super Bowl week, and he declined to speak on it any further, so we will possibly never know. Either way, the Falcons are going to be eating an enormous amount of cap space, but I guess it helps that their starting quarterback moving forward is obviously on a rookie contract with Michael Penix. It'll be interesting to see where Kirk ends up going. He's going to be 37 and less than 2 years removed from an Achilles tear by the time next season rolls around. He could be a decent stopgap QB for a team like the Raiders, or some have suggested the Browns could even be a fit because he has history with Kevin Stefanski in Minnesota, and obviously Deshaun Watson tore his Achilles twice and is probably not playing next year. It's anybody's guess at this point in time, and I'm sure Kirk and Cooper Kupp and even Myles Garrett, who requested a trade himself earlier this week, are going to be far from the last guys switching teams next year. But that's all I have for today, and with that, I'll see y'all next time.